How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Today's episode of The Hardy Construction. That's us. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, as well as YouTube. Give us a like, hit the bell, subscribe, tell people about us, or don't tell us about us. With your host, Komp, and...
The Silence of the Lambs.
Also...
Clickhole.
I don't know what to say anymore after her name. Anyway, today's film is...
The Silence of the Lambs, 1991. Based on a novel from 1988.
The Silence of the Lambs, 1991, directed by Jonathan Demme, based on the Thomas Harris novel, with screenplay by Ted Talley, starring Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, Lawrence A. Bonney, as well as Casey Lemons, Lawrence T. Wren, Scott Glenn, Anthony Held, Frankie Faison, Don Brockett, So why did you guys pick The Silence of the Lambs, 1991?
You know
because
why.
You've never seen it, you bastard.
Oh, I have
insane.
seen it. I've seen most of it. I've seen like 80%.
That doesn't
You
count.
haven't watched the movie.
So
all the way through.
I already had issues with seeing this film because of its treatment of trans characters and casting Jack Crawford as a white man when he was clearly played by Lawrence Fishburne. Racist film.
That's true. Whitewashing Jack Crawford.
Erasure.
It's fat phobic.
Right.
Has men ogling women.
Well, you know what though? I don't think it's really fat.
I mean, it also has
though.
men throwing jizz into women's hair, but
I think
I
it's the opposite of fat phobic because it's saying they make great suits.
So of course, Thea, when we were reviewing
Whoa,
the
what
show,
was that?
It's a car going insane.
It sounded like the movie The Mist.
So what part of The Mist did you see? So Danny and Thea were chiding me, making fun of me because I had not fully sat down and appreciated The Silence of the Lambs, the Jonathan Demme film.
There it is again.
While we were talking about Hannibal, the TV series.
Yeah, how can you watch the show Hannibal but not have?
It does feel crazy to watch the show without
I'd
having
seen
seen
about
the movie.
70% of this, 60-70% of this.
Okay,
movie.
but you
Okay,
can't
like
watch a movie
bottom.
in bits and pieces.
And then I finally see it because Danny and Thea said, "This is the greatest movie of all time. You can't watch any of the movie by."
I did not say that, but
this is such a wonderful film. Like it'll make you want to, impress Jodie Foster in an illegal.
And
way.
what did
That's
you
what
think?
They told me. See, that's a very deep cut reference for Jodie Foster fans. Anyway, big deal.
Remember when you couldn't remember her name?
Big deal.
Now I know her name because this movie, it put me in my mind. It's like, I must impress Jodie Foster. Does nobody get that reference?
No.
Nobody get that joke?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I'm not going to bring that up because we get in trouble for that. So, The Silence of the Lambs, 1991. Thea, get into the storyline. What is this movie about?
This movie is about Clarice Starling, who is an FBI trainee who gets brought on to talk to a previous serial killer to sort of ask him questions about a current serial killer. She doesn't know that at first. And see if she can glean some information on this new suspect and see if we can figure out who Buffalo Bill really is from Hannibal Lecter.
Who's Buffalo Bill, by the way? What did he do? He was killing women and taking pieces of their skin.
That bastard.
That's right.
You gotta respect
Here's the thing
women.
with this movie. I think with this movie, what they should have done, they should have gotten rid of that old smelly woman and put Hannibal there with another guy, and they could have gay undertones. Now that's a movie.
That would have been
fellas
good.
And ladies, now that
was a different movie.
Hannibal have interest in sex? I know in the show he does, sort of.
Kind of, but only as like a tool. I feel like in the show.
He hooks up with Clarice Starling in the Hannibal book, doesn't he?
I don't remember. I read all of them at one point, but I just can't remember. I do remember there's this weird relationship between them, but I don't believe it's a sexual thing.
Okay, now guys, after I say this statement, imagine me putting my palm up in the air for a high five. Now, what do you do when Hannibal says he wants to eat some ass?
And then he high-fived himself. Oh my god.
I am out of my mind tonight. So, Clarice Starling, she is FBI in training, right? She is...
yes, she's a trainee.
Is it Quantico she was in, or am I going crazy? I'm thinking
yes,
of something else.
Quantico.
Okay, so Quantico.
No,
so
you're
she's
right.
training around. Movie starts out with her training in field. I found the opening credits very jarring. It almost looked like television show credits. It was just this weird...
What, her jogging and shit?
You heard the word font, right, Danny? Because that's
I didn't hear it.
Font. Okay, so she's running around,
Asshole.
and she is summoned by Jack Crawford, played by Scott Glenn. There are two guys in this movie.
You know what would be great if they go into the movie and CGI Lawrence Fishburne's face over him.
I mean, I would watch it.
But not the white parts?
Like the way, everything. It was just
not his voice, though.
Like what George Lucas did, the Star Wars, how he put these fucking...
In the Star Wars.
How he put those assholes in.
Well, I mean, it was important that he put the young Anakin.
No, it wasn't.
Old Anakin, wasn't it? No?
No. No, he ruined it. It's stupid.
So, I thought Scott Glenn was actually a pretty good Jack Crawford in this, myself.
Yeah. Subtle.
Well,
He's not super prominent in this movie anyway.
Jack Crawford
so it's
was originally Caucasian in the book. Everybody was essentially white in the books.
And mostly dudes.
They gave it a nice... it's true, compared to the television series. So luckily they got a nice update with that, with the series. But so anyway, Clarice Starling, she's very much the apple of the students' how do you say it? She's the spark of the students. Essentially, she's the one that's most...
That was really good idioms you used right there.
I need to go to sleep.
She's really good at work.
I meant to say she was the apple of
we
Jack
kept him up
Crawford's
too late.
eye, but doesn't make any fucking sense, and then I just lost my trail. So anyway, so she is taking...
She's the top of her class.
There you go. That's what I should have said, because I'm not functioning
She's
correctly.
a star pupil.
So Jack Crawford is very impressed by her, and because she is one of those people that's able to question his authority and stuff like that. And I know that I heard about it earlier, a long while ago, the way that this film is framed by director Jonathan Demme. What is interesting about the framing of this film, Thea, especially between characters?
The framing of it?
I
love that you give that.
I guess you didn't.
Well, you throw that to me without any.
Okay, so a lot of the men in this film, when they speak, they're shot up very close. They're very tight frames over their faces.
Yes.
And I think this is supposed to simulate that these men are above, and they're very sort of threatening in a way. Just because they're men or something like that. There
are a lot of scenes where they put Clarice specifically in a group of men. Like there's the scene right off the top when she's in the elevator.
Heads and shit.
And I wonder if this is something I would have caught on as younger. Now, I guess, because I must have heard that.
No, I doubt it. I didn't catch on to it as a kid.
Yeah, because when you see it now, you notice that, like, she's essentially, like, she's, like, in the middle of the sea of men that are, like...
Also, she's, like, a foot shorter than everybody else.
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes they shoot at her... Sometimes they shoot at her height, and sometimes they shoot at the height of the other men in the room. Like, when you're at the funeral home, and it's all those... local officers, and they're all like a foot taller than she is. They're shooting at their eye level for a lot of it, which you can see like she's like barely in the frame because she's so tiny.
So,
and that's pretty specific.
Do you think that's a positive sort of feminine style of filming? You know what I mean? I don't know how to say it correctly. Is that like a pretty realistic portrayal of?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
I don't think it does a disservice to her character. I think like she's
I think it does a lot for this. A lot of this movie feels like a character study of her,
right?
In terms of like her past and her present sort of state, because like she's a very like obviously resourceful, gung ho character in the present day, and part of that is like they show you like she is in a sea of men essentially, and she has to continually prove herself to be better than all of them. Sort of, and like more achieving than most of them, and also able to command them, even though she's tiny and she's in a sea of guys who just look at her like, "What the fuck are you doing here?"
And what's also really interesting. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was saying what's interesting. I don't know if it was going to step over your point. At the very end, when she and her roommate are speaking, the frame becomes the same as the guys, where like Jack Crawford's like usual sort of super up close face. That was the only time at the end when she and her roommate. Or I'm sorry, her friend, figure out what where this guy could be. The framing on their faces is super tight. It's towards the end of the film when they're talking to each other about
they have now become the men.
I don't know. I don't know what that was supposed to sort of, what it was supposed to signify myself, or maybe it's still flying over my head. But the framing was the exact type of framing every other guy in the movie had when it was super tight on their face. So I don't know what that was supposed to signify or symbolize. But I thought that was interesting. Yeah, it happens at the very right before she catches him.
Yeah, it's sort of like the epiphany. I feel like a lot of those like really tight close-ups are coming at pivotal moments of information.
Right.
And things that they're like, you need to focus on what they're saying, what is being learned right in this moment.
Right.
I feel like that's more of what it is to me story-wise. I mean, it might also be sort of like an interesting like gender perspective in terms of like how they do that. I would have to look at it more specifically, I guess, for that, but I think that's more what I was getting from it, was like, this is a moment where like she learns something huge, especially in those scenes when she's with Hannibal and it's an interview scene, and like there are moments where it's sort of back and you sort of have him 3/4 view, and then there are moments where it's like right on his face, and he is, usually it's when he's like hyper analyzing her, or when he's trying to pull something out of her, that we're really close on him and her.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so intimate and it's so close.
I'm actually really curious, what do you think of this Hannibal versus the Hannibal you've known? Since you saw it in the wrong order.
No, I've known this Hannibal's movie for like 10 minutes. I saw all of his scenes before I saw the TV show.
Oh, you're so annoying.
I said I saw a 60-80% of the fucking movie. Huh?
What do you think is the difference for you?
Obviously he's more theatrical in this. He's more horror movie bad guy. I can see why, like, he's like in the movie very shortly, but I can see why people always put him in like horror movie sort of art and stuff like that. When you see memes or Cannibal, there's a reason why he's stuck out, because he's playing he's a fucking creep in the movie.
I mean, the Hannibal in the show, this Hannibal in the show would be that way too if he was caught.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Hannibal in the show is a completely different creep. Like, he's like a fucking alien monster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Hannibal in this film, like,
he's lost the illusion of it, sort of.
Right, like, I think this is way after, obviously he's arrested, so this is...
Yeah, he doesn't have to wear a mask anymore.
Because it was, like, interesting to see, like, the part, because I had forgotten, like, how much the show had obviously taken from the films also, clearly. Like, the part where the cop is like wrapped up in the, like, he has like angel wings because of the flag or something.
Yeah.
And they did that for the guy who's turning people into angels by cutting their fucking backs open, giving them the Roman eagle or whatever that shit was called. I don't know if that's the right. I don't know if a Roman eagle is like a sex move. Anyway, but
we can make it one if it's not.
But also the part when at the end when he beat the shit out of those cops and killed them, and he was listening to operatic music. Obviously, this was all informed from the novels. So I was like, oh yeah, so they must have taken me, because it was like when I saw that scene of him sort of, doing the fake conducting or whatever he was doing to the music, it immediately reminded me of the television show. Not that Hannibal in the show ever moved his hands in a conducting way, but it immediately was like, oh yes, I realized it's the same character.
Then also in the books they get more into, because I do remember some of it. They get like really into his like he like creates a memory, I guess, labyrinth in his head where like he could just go into like doors and drawers and stuff and like access any memory type of thing. I forget like the term.
They do that with Dr. Sleep.
Memory Palace. They mentioned it in the show too.
Yeah. Okay.
He's sort of like in, I think it's second season at some point, when he's sort of getting rid of all the evidence with Will.
Yeah.
He's saying like, all of this is my whole office, my whole home is in my memory palace, so like I can go there if I ever get caught.
Yeah, so he has that, and they get into that like a lot from what I remember. Which is cool.
As for his performance, I liked it. You know what I mean? It's like it is over the top, but like when the parts when he was subtle, like he was very good. Like there's a reason why he keeps fucking work. He's one of those actors where he's gonna be good in whatever he is, even if he's in a piece of shit movie. He's good because he is who he is. He's one of those kind of classically trained actors that can slum it but still look like he's doing hard work.
He's subtle,
right? So I mean, there's obviously he's not like, I think it's the writing that makes it maybe cartoonishly evil, but he still is so classically well trained as an actor that he gives it gravitas, so to speak. So I think he's a very there's a reason why people will still remember him over the Hannibal on the TV show. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this film this film is condensed for a mass audience, as opposed to that show where it got a little artsy for too many people, and it's
very specific to the people who understand or who really love those movies and those stories.
Right. So I mean, I have to watch the Brian Cox one because people, I'm sure there's people that go, well, Brian Cox was the best.
Do you think?
Do
you think
Brian Cox is a fucking great actor? So
of
I can imagine his
Wait, Brian
version.
Cox is the name of Hannibal? No.
I'm sorry, in Manhunter. The original, the first movie, because they did. This wasn't the first Thomas Harris Hannibal Lecter film. Manhunter was the first one.
Yeah, and
that's from a really good fucking director.
See, I never saw that.
It's Michael Mann. That one we should do. We should do a double feature of that and Red Dragon. But anyway, so Brian Cox plays that, and Brian Cox is a fucking phenomenal.
He's incredible.
Actor. So they picked 3 really good fucking actors to play this character.
I like his last name. It makes me think of penises.
So I mean, with that, you sort of have to. Hannibal Lecter is the sort of boogeyman of these books. You know what I mean? So you have to get like the best actor, not necessarily of the film, but you have to have somebody that it's a really important cast. Like if you fuck up a Hannibal Lecter, it's sort of like the Joker. Like I didn't think anybody.
Well, didn't they fuck it up with Jared Leto?
That's what I'm saying. I couldn't think you could fuck that movie up until I saw Suicide Squad, one of the worst movies I've seen in my life. Let me recount that story with Thea. What happened when I went to go see Suicide Squad?
Oh God!
Danny knows this story. I told him 100 times. I sit down in the fucking theater by myself. Because
by yourself,
that's
even worse.
My mom and my niece visited from Florida, and we had her. And we just randomly went to the mall, and there was a movie theater. I'm not gonna watch what.
I love how mad it gets you. That's they went to go
see.
Part.
No, they went to go see some weird teen movie about.
Sure.
I don't know what the fuck it was. I was like, nah, I'm gonna go see Suicide Squad. So I sit in the theater, right? And I'm like, ready to sit down and watch this movie because I was like, oh, the trailer was okay. And then this young girl and an older man sit behind me, right?
Oh, God.
It's not going to go there yet. So I'm sitting there.
Oh, not yet.
I have maybe 2 seats to my right that are empty. And this girl who's 14, 15 years old, she gets up from the seat from behind me and sits right next to me. There's nobody else in this fucking theater that's sitting next to me. And I was like, this is in my head, I was like, what the fuck is going on? This is strange. And then, actually, I think it was only one seat that was open next to me. So she sat in the one seat that was open next to me, and I was like, what the fuck? And then the guy gets up, and he walks up to me, and he's like, I'm sorry, man, this is my daughter. Do you think I can sit where you're sitting so I can sit with her? And I was like, what? What the fuck? I was so upset. I must have looked like an insane person.
He has because
it's horrible.
Social situation.
Because I started cursing and yelling. I started cursing and yelling to myself as I got up out of the chair because I'm not gonna say, no, let me sit next to your fucking 13-year-old daughter. Why did this girl sit next to me? What did I?
Why is she sitting?
Why did they sit behind me in the first place?
This is like a Larry David thing.
Well, because then part of me is like, okay. Maybe she... I don't even know.
I don't know. She wanted to sit with her dad?
But maybe she has a social anxiety thing and she had to sit there for some reason.
Can we talk about Silence of the Lambs, you guys?
Giant head and says,
hey, you guys.
Next to that sexy guy. Oh, okay.
No, we can't, Dan.
Let's talk.
Anyway, so back to this film. So Clarice Starling is set up. They have a very good Chilton in here also. Chilton is very.
They do.
He's very sleazy, and he's an actor.
He reminds me of the one in the show. They do a similar.
Yeah, one of the shows is more comical. This one's more of a douche.
It was a 1-for-1 sort of. But I mean they're both douches. They're both.
But Raul is a little more silly.
Yeah,
I like him more than the one.
It's hard to take him
he's more likable in a weird way.
Yeah.
And Anthony Held is an actor that I've seen in many things, but I always used to mistake him with Anthony Head, who played Giles in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just from the name.
I mean, same name.
Oh shit, Anthony Held. Then I was like, oh, it's Anthony Held, not Anthony.
I definitely know him from something, but I'm not sure what.
It was cool to see Frankie Faison in here too. He's an African American actor that's been in millions of things, but you don't know where he's from. And I remember when I saw Hannibal the movie, in the theaters, that stupid movie, and he was in it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy from.
Wait, so you saw? Wait, so you saw Manhunter? You saw Hannibal the movie?
I've seen bits of all of them.
So you saw Hannibal the movie, but not Silence of the Lambs.
It's like nobody understands English. I said I saw like about 70-80% of the
No, that's not a real thing.
He's seen parts of all of them, is what I understand.
When Silence of the Lambs was on TV, I looked away at the parts when they were pushing papers, okay? It was
that's not watching a movie.
I listened to it. Dan, you didn't see 5 movies today while you were cleaning your house?
No, I saw 2 movies, one of which I've seen 400 times, and another one which I was paying attention to.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so Danny, what happens in this initial meeting with Clarice Starling and Hannibal Lecter?
Lecter.
They get spelled differently in the books too, right?
They get
it's Lecter.
They get to know
Lector. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They get to know each other. They introduce, and basically, she has no idea that she's kind of being like used a little bit by Jack.
They told her though. Right? Oh, okay.
Well, he left out some stuff, and he is interested in her and wants to know shit. But then, like, that's all that happens for them, and then eventually it gets more into like a therapy session sort of thing.
Isn't your favorite character Miggs in there? Whatever his name is?
Yeah, what he does with the semen at that point, that's like my hero.
Artistic.
There's a movie called...
also sexual assault, but either way.
I would never do it. I would live vicariously
just to clarify.
There's a movie I regard highly. It's such a great movie. It's called National Lampoon's Fully Loaded. Or Loaded Weapon, excuse me.
Oh, I never saw that one.
It's making fun of... Oh, God, it's so stupid, but it's great. It's making fun of Lethal Weapon films with Samuel Jackson and Emilio Estevez.
Uh-huh.
It's a part where it's making fun of this scene itself. I think Emilio Estevez is walking to go tell... F. Mary Abraham is playing the Hannibal Lecter character, and he's walking down that corridor... And the guy who's playing the Miggs character, he says, "I can smell your feet."
So we went in the opposite direction.
I don't know why I found that so...
We went like more low-key rather than up.
Funniest thing I ever seen. It was so fucking funny, that movie. Anyway, it's a very stupid movie. So, it's a very serendipitous sort of reasoning of why... the whole movie is serendipitous, right? I mean, like, Hannibal Lecter essentially was... seeing a patient who was having a sexual relationship with Buffalo Bill. Now, this is something Jack Crawford didn't know. So this just happens to be a very small world, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Clarice Starling finds the fucking head of the guy. I was wondering, was that the same character that was in the series that was like trying to be an annoying friend to...
I don't
yeah,
think
I
so.
wondered that too, actually.
But anyway, they
although,
find
maybe. No, I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's an interesting
that guy was really
annoying.
I was really happy when he died.
Oh my god, he was so annoying.
But they found the guy. She finds the guy's head in a jar, and then Lecter says, "I didn't know the guy. I didn't kill the guy." So obviously that puts all this together. But Hannibal Lecter's bigger role is essentially finding a way to get the fuck out of this, very small prison. And it's all we're essentially seeing 2 storylines with Hannibal Lecter. Unbeknownst to the audience, I guess maybe known to the audience, he's trying to find a way to get out. I thought it was particularly pretty fucking smart. I remember when I first saw it on TV, the ending when he's escaping,
yeah,
and he has the cop's face on. I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting, because I thought like, are they gonna kill him by him falling down the fucking elevator shaft? That's pretty stupid. And then when he takes the guy's face off, I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't know if people saw that ahead of time coming, but I certainly didn't when I was...
I didn't see it as a kid. I didn't see it coming as a kid, obviously.
But it also shows that he's in the movie for 10 minutes, and that's mostly what everybody speaks about.
Is it really that little? Like, I wonder.
That's what I heard. I heard he's less than 10... he's about 10 minutes, no more or no less or something like that.
Wow.
What did you guys think of Jodie Foster's performance as Clarice Starling?
She's great. I love it.
I love it so much.
What do you like about it?
It's just like classic.
I just like how it's very restrained. Mm-hmm. Like, she doesn't go super hard on anything. I mean...
Wow,
I feel
laughed at that joke? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, A woman, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
She.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just very. It's the same sort of thing that they're all doing in this, which is very like sort of restrained and letting the character choices that are in the script sort of drive it, because I feel like the choices that she gets to play out as a character sort of show who she is without her having to really overperform it, but like maybe an unexperienced person would really overperform. Whereas she feels very authentic.
Was this like one of her first movies? Maybe she's so young.
It's pretty early, but her first big movie was Taxi Driver. Yeah, it was when she was like 14 or 13 or whatever she was.
I think she was in something called Bugsy Malone, which might have been even before that. Now you want to talk about seeing obscure movies? That's a fucking.
She's
Bugsy
only
Malone
57. Wow.
She's Bugsy Malone was this gangster film, but everybody in the film was played by children. So it's like children as gangsters. It's a fucking weird movie.
That does sound weird.
They kill each other, but it's not with like they don't really. I guess.
Wait! Oh my god! At the end of that, is there this like guy who like kicks a child to death or something?
No. You're thinking Day.
Oh my god!
Day of the Locust. You see, that was an adult, right, Danny? And I said this had only children.
No, but that's the only guy in the scene. It's the only adult.
No. That's the Day of the Locust. That's a completely different film.
That was like strangely like a very funny
That's an amazing.
scene,
Like I never saw that film, but I saw the last part of it. And it's insane, and I love movies I haven't seen. And sort of like The Gangs of New York has an insane ending. You listen to Spanish music, you racist. Anyway, but this Bugsy Malone movie starred her and that who's that twat, the guy from Charles in Charge, Chachi. Anyway, so she was young in that, and I think it was before Taxi Driver. But then she was also in a movie called, what was the movie where her character is assaulted on top of a fucking
Scott Baio
machine or some shit like that. Yeah, and that was like The Accused or something, I think that was called. So she's been in a lot of things. She obviously doesn't really need to act in a lot of shit. She chooses not to, I guess. The last thing I think she was in was something called Hotel Artemis. It was like some weird neo-noir cyberpunk movie. And I heard that it sucked. And it had Margot Robbie in it.
I still kind of want to see it, though.
Same here. It's on Amazon Prime, so I'm probably going to see it for free. Once I heard it was cyberpunk, I was like, okay, I'll give it a look.
Her first movie was a Disney movie called Napoleon and Samantha, which I have never heard of in my life.
What was first, Bugsy Malone or this thing?
They were the same. They came out the same year, but I think she shot Taxi Driver first?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Probably at the same time.
Taxi Driver, actually, one of the classic movies I actually did see way back when.
Anyway, in bits and pieces, like 70%, or did you actually watch it?
I actually sat and watched the film.
Okay, good.
That was my college days when I was bored out of my mind. Anyway, so yeah, she's really good, and I guess I can see why she didn't want to do Hannibal. I guess
it wasn't a good movie from what I recall.
It wasn't. Nah, I didn't think it was anything spectacular.
Who did it? It was
the screenplay was not very
good.
Who
was her character? Who was Clarice?
Julianne Moore.
Okay, yeah.
Smoking hot and Milfatron. I know, no offense to women, of course.
Milfatron's a compliment.
So what's weird about Hannibal the movie is that it was like they thought they were making Silence of the Lambs, but then they they just straight up said, let's make it like Jason and fucking Freddy Krueger. Because, I mean, it was just, like, super gore. Because what people do is when they misunderstand a fucking movie. Because you see this movie, this isn't really a horror film. Well, in a way it is. It's a horror film. It's horror adjacent. It's more of a police.
But it's more psychological.
That has some graphic up. Like, Seven leans a little bit more towards horror just because of the aesthetic of it.
I consider this like a thriller or something, I guess.
Yeah, right. It's like a police procedural thriller, which I like a lot. But like that has gory and dark elements to it and shit like that. But it's just that the Hannibal movie, they said, they like Hannibal. Hannibal eats people, right? Let's have fucking people. He throws a French guy over a fucking thing, and the guy's organs fall out, like graphically. Like none of that shit. Like there's graphic shit in this movie, obviously.
Yeah.
But like in that they tilted it up.
But it's like done artistically.
Yeah, right. In Hannibal, they wanted to fucking, please an audience. They're like, let's just make it R-rated.
Do you think Buffalo Bill's main issue is that his family named him James instead of James?
So let's talk about the representation of LGBTQ.
Oh boy.
I don't know what the other letters are. I'm sorry. I was
This apparently got a lot of controversy.
You can just say plus if you're not sure.
Plus. Okay, Sophia, what's the... I don't know, you're not the spokesperson for...
I mean, I am here.
LGBTQ plus. In this,
yes,
in
she
this
is.
show you are, I guess.
Yes, she is.
Representation of trans or trans-adjacent.
Well, this thing got a lot of controversy because they felt like they were like making a transsexual person an evil villain kind of thing, and yeah. But
so the hard thing is that in the era that this was shot and made, this movie, these conversations were not being had about people who are trans in a way that is like actually good, where like people are allowed to be like the only representations of people who are trans in this era was bad, including this one being pretty much the worst version. And this character isn't necessarily just trans, obviously. He's like psychotic.
Yeah.
What's the interesting thing is that I was kind of is that they bring up the fact that they don't think he's really a trans person.
Exactly.
And then they come up with some weird thing like trans people are more submissive, and I was like, what?
Yes.
Like, I don't
they're more usually passive because they're so afraid of being perceived as violent or scary or whatever because people don't understand them. But this representation came out before those conversations were really being had by like general people. Mm-hmm. So like behavioral scientists were having those conversations, but general people were seeing this movie and going, "Oh, trans people are even scarier than we thought at first." So like that's bad if somebody wants to do that.
Why did I mean, we're not all historians on. It's like I don't even know if
I'm actually a historian.
But why were trans? Well, I guess I'm just trying to think of why people were so like thinking that these people were scary individuals because they were like not like in normal.
It's ignorance.
That they're scary or something like that.
People don't understand people they don't understand. Yeah, like
no, I understand people suck. I was just wondering the thinking of like why would you think a person's scary just because they're. I guess it answers itself because people don't.
Here's what I will say. There is a documentary out right now called Disclosure. It's on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It will. I haven't even watched it at this point because I am just waiting to watch it with my partner.
What's it called?
But it's called Disclosure.
Oh, okay.
And it is a whole breadth of trans people talking about trans representation in media over the last however many years, and historically how that media has affected them growing up and how it's affected other people's interpretations of them and thoughts of them and that kind of thing.
Because they specifically
this movie,
say he's trans.
I'm sure they talk about this movie. Like yes.
I mean,
they talk about it because that's how they track him down by the list of he has gone to look sort of into this
and been denied
as an option. I think.
I know there's
and been denied. Yes.
There's very clearly differences between drag and trans. The term that they used to use. I don't even know if I can fucking say that. But like because
they used to say transsexual. They say transsexual in this movie. That's part of it too. And transvestite, yes.
So I wasn't sure about if we can even say that fucking thing. But
is that offensive?
I can see. I don't. I think
transvestite is offensive. Yes.
I didn't know that.
It's not the best way to say it.
Oh,
you're canceled, Danny. But so I think
you're
that Thea, can you elaborate a little bit more on how his portrayal is?
So here is the real problem of the representation. I think that the representation as explained in this movie is specific enough that it isn't so damaging, but because it got taken and exploded out to a bunch of different pop culture references, including things like Silent Bob and that kind of thing, where they did it as a joke, it has become like that scene has become a joke in like the straight world, where it is like, oh, like I can pretend to be a woman if I just like tuck my balls down, and like it's funny to do that. It's not scary. It's not real. It's not my experience as a trans person. It's like belittling that kind of trying on of like femininity because I don't have it. And that's the problem.
I can see also why, because I'm like, oh, there's nothing wrong if anybody is portrayed as a psychopath, but if this is the only sort of representation,
if this is it, and you have nothing to compare it to that's positive, then what do you have? You have nothing.
That also is obviously like Ace Ventura and stuff like that,
and you don't know any trans people in your real life, so it's like, the only experience I have is like jokes or psychos.
Right. Cause it's like it's weird because if you're let's say because Danny and I are coming from, we're a little bit older than Thea, so we're like, we grew up mostly in that time.
Naked Gun is one of my favorite movies. And
Part 3
Naked Gun 33 and a third, there's like a fucking very mean trans joke in there. And as a kid, I used to think it was funny. And I used to...
Of course, because those are the jokes we grew up with.
Yeah. But now I'm like, oh, that's kind of bad. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's interesting to sort of learn things because you don't know anything about that. And you have to, like, because it's just out of general respect for people. Because, like it was weird unless you knew I was growing up. When I was, obviously when I was a fucking humongously fat little kid. I'm still a fat fuck now, but when I was a little kid, it's like one of my only friends in school was this girl who was gay.
Yeah.
So and to me, I was like, oh shit, it was weird because we were both outsiders, so I completely understood. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I get it now. Like, I didn't understand what she went through fully. I was picked on for my own reasons. Yeah. But I can see why she. I get.
You identified with it.
I identified because I understood. Oh shit, somebody who, besides all my flaws, accepted me as a friend, and I did for her too. And like even my friend in junior high,
I can't bring myself to accept you, but
that's fine. Me, I don't accept myself sometimes. But like when I was like, and this isn't me patting myself on the back, but it's just like you have to live through it to fucking understand that there's nobody's gonna be fucking. There is no set type of person that is a perfect person.
But here's the thing.
I'm pretty close.
Each of us, white passing privilege and all that aside, perhaps we each have, I think the three of us, something that we've grown up with that's like a point of outsiderism.
I'm a dirty Jew.
I'm a Latino.
I mean, you don't have to say it on. Okay.
Oh. Now she won't do the show with us anymore.
No, I'm not going to do it.
I thought it was
anti-Semite.
I thought it was an interesting facet of the film that I understand why people have issues with it. Because I mean, there's
so it's just like here's the thing. Look at every media that you grew up with a critical eye. It doesn't mean you can't like that thing anymore. It just means that you're looking at it and going, that part of it is problematic and that part of it isn't cool for people who are from that community.
Yeah,
that's
you
all.
have to be aware of it, and you can't be like, hey, don't worry, it's just this, because you don't live through that person.
Yeah.
You don't wear their shoes, Because it was just listening today, listening to Ben Mankiewicz, he's a host on TCM, Turner Classic Movies. And he was talking about Gone with the Wind, and how they got rid of it from HBO Max, and the guy, and he was like, I really hate this movie, and there's this whole thing going on.
I've never seen that.
Where I saw it recently for the first time. I saw the second half. It was like a 3-hour film, or even longer it might be. And I was watching it, and I was like, holy, there is some racist shit going on. Like the South are the good guys in the film. And obviously, in the because it's based on a novel, we're talking about this like the winners write the history essentially.
Yeah.
But I mean, what they were dealing with back in the South, I can see why they were the villain, or they were, in real life. And in the films, they're portrayed as oh, we must defend our country, land, and all that bullshit. And like some of the people that worked for them were like doing like that really stereotypical like shit you'd see out of 1920s movies. Like the African American characters, and I was like, oh my god! Like, I was like, holy fuck! Like, I can see why they erased that shit out because it's not necessarily, it's not a positive thing for African Americans in the film, and it's lauded as a great movie, and it's a gorgeous looking film. But I can see you watch that movie. If you're African American, watch that movie, be like, what the fuck am I seeing? What I mean? And this is not about. It's not about because I don't think movies should necessarily be. I don't think they should be censored at all, because it is a form of art. But obviously, there's like shit like movies like it was like the first big movie. What the fuck was it called?
The first big movie. Oh, that.
I know what you mean, but I can't remember what it's called.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
What?
Yeah.
How do you know what he's talking about?
Essentially, the Klan. It's the biggest. It was the first movie that essentially laid the groundwork for all films. And in that one, the Ku Klux Klan were the heroes. And there'd be scenes with black actors, and then it's so funny just because of how ridiculous this is. Whenever the scene was with a white character, the black actor would turn into a white guy with blackface on, and it's like It's like it's like you watching like holy fuck. You watching for a historical reference, and I don't.
What is this movie called?
Hold on, I'm gonna find it. Keep talking.
But anyway, it's like the Klan winning, and I'm like, that's a fucking dangerous thing to see in a film. But you know what I mean? It's a part of history of that film, and I don't think people should see that definitely with a critical fucking eye, because it's like same with anything that was made that was a product of its time. It's almost like when they put up a Bugs Bunny cartoon that was like again like when we were at war with Japan.
I'm so conflicted about this shit.
They put no, it's tough because like.
It's like, put a fucking warning in the beginning. Like, this movie has, like, racism and whatever,
right,
you know? Like,
right. And,
I don't think it should change it,
whatever,
though.
They'll just watch it. Because, I don't think they should change any film.
I'm, like, really...
The Birth of a Nation is what it's called.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So, if you watch it, it's a completely different thing. You're like, holy fuck, a road.
Oh, I'm sure it is, but I don't think it should be banned or something. It's an interesting
conversation about this film, and I wonder what Jodie Foster herself thinks about the film nowadays. I wonder what her. It's a personal thing. I don't know. It's
well, she's part of the. I mean, she's part of the LGBT community, so it'd be interesting to hear what she thinks. But also, she's a rich woman, so like we know to sort of not totally believe the understandings of people who are from that community and who are wealthy, aka Ellen.
Oh God, she's the worst, man. She's the worst.
Like a nightmare.
Oh yeah, she's horrible. I mean, besides just being
George Bush, we should talk about the movie more.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, we would talk. I think we've spoken. I think this is probably the most adult conversation we've ever had on this series. But
it's important to have them.
I think it's an.
I didn't contribute much, to be honest.
I think it's an interesting facet of the film that, while most people will be like, "Oh, whatever," you still. It's important to learn from things, and not to take away from Ted Levine's acting, because he's really fucking good.
He's incredible.
He's great as a psychopath. The part when the daughter, the senator's daughter, is screaming up and he screams back, and it almost looks like he doesn't have any fucking teeth in his mouth because he's screaming back at her. He's fucking good in this movie.
Yeah, he's a super creep.
Yeah, and just the way
he plays moments of sort of like the subtlety of almost looking like he's feeling for her for a moment, but then it feels in the next instant it feels like he's just trying to get back control and then fully imitating her.
It was specifically something she says to him. She goes, "I'm somebody's daughter" or something, and you see it like you see it register in his eyes.
She says, "I just want to talk to my mom. I just want to talk to my mommy."
Right, and you see him like you see something was there.
Yeah.
And favorite bad line. He goes, "Is that great big girl?" The way he says that line is so good.
I just love the part. Like, I think the best part is when he could tell that she knows he's the guy, and he's kind of like giggling a little bit, like, it like gets me.
He does that little twirl around to get out of the room.
Yeah, like it's just like this is like a little kid right now or something.
But I also say I was just watching and I was like imagining, because I had seen it a long time ago, that ending when she's in he's wearing night vision goggles to look at her.
Yeah,
and I was like,
in the dark.
People must have been shitting bricks at that scene in the
so
theater.
Scary.
That was such a cool scene, because the people who like, he's right in front of you, but it's a movie. And I thought that was so well executed. I think like all around it's a really solid film, and I can see why people treat it with such reverence compared to the fucking sequels or whatever. I think the Hannibal show is comparable in some of the not the forensic, because they didn't do forensics in this. Well, they did do forensics in this film, but
they do psychological breakdowns.
And some of the procedural stuff, it's just that the show is way more aesthetic.
It's like polished,
aesthetically, informed than this is.
Well, and there are even like higher level conversations about like psyche and that kind of thing.
Right.
But that's also because it's modernized, right? It's not set in the 90s and that kind of thing.
Yeah, in a visual way. Because this isn't sort of a flashy film. It sort of presents you.
But it is so well shot, in my opinion.
Oh, it's a beautiful. This is a good looking film. I mean, it's just. I like that type of
It's not artsy fartsy. Hannibal is.
Yeah, it's
100% artsy fartsy.
It's like this movie is very subtle in its presentation. Not really the cop scenes. When he kills all those cops at the end, like that's very graphic and gory. But it's not.
It's in service of the story more than in service of the atmosphere, necessarily.
So I thought all around it's a really excellent film, and I wish there were more sort of dark I don't know if there will ever be police movies ever. You look at everything with a different lens.
I'd fuck me so
But
hard.
is there any other things you guys would bring up that you thought about this film?
No, I'm happy you saw it.
I think we pretty much covered it.
Okay. So I think that was a pretty mountainous review.
It makes me want to reread the book, but
Makes me want to read the book.
it's been so many years.
They made 3 more sequels to this film because they
3?
really wanted to milk this. Yes, they did. With the worst being the last one. They made Hannibal as a sequel to this one.
Yeah.
Then they did Red Dragon, which was a prequel to this.
That was good.
Essentially a remake of Manhunter.
I remember
That wasn't
liking
too bad.
that.
And then they did
A prequel.
yes,
Hannibal Rising?
Hannibal Rising, horrible
Yeah.
movie. I saw.
I haven't actually seen it.
Leave it.
So, Thea, what rating would you give the film, the problematic film, Silence of the Lambs?
I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 fake eyelashes on a rubber head in a jar.
Ooh.
Yeah, oh, so that's what not Joe Bob. Yeah, the movie talker guy. No,
Joe Bob?
Bill. Joe Bob Briggs did it.
Wait, what was your number?
9 out of 10,
9.
she said.
Okay.
I would also give it a 9 out of 10. About to kill somebody, about to starve them, feeding them only scraps of food. But then they fuck up your day by taking your little dog. See, Danny, what's your rating for this film?
I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. This is a perfect movie. Come on.
Ooh.
I'm surprised at you, Thea. I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10. Putting the lotion on your skin, or else you get the hose again.
There was also, by the way, if you want, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube or snippets of it. There was a comedy musical based on Silence of the Lambs by this group, these guys called John and Al. In context, I don't know what they say about his character in it, but they have a song called "Put the Fucking Lotion in the Basket," and it's a really catchy song.
Yeah.
So look up John and Al on YouTube, and they did a whole musical based on this, and it was on off Broadway for a while. So with that, Thea, what's the final word?
Notes.
Danny, what's the final word?